All right, I had another video, astrology video. You see the fedora, you see it, and we got the moon in the second house. Moon in the second house means you value emotions, you value other people's emotions, you value your deeper side, the deeper side that you have to yourself. You value your soul, you value that type of thing in life. It's not always about the surface level shit for you. You like, depth. You like knowing who a person is. You like to know what made a person who they are, what drives them forward. What type of soul does this person have? You want to like know that type of thing, about people. This person who has moon in the second house, you value that type of thing in people. And you don't like, turn people away who may seem to be more on the emotional side. You try to understand it. You try to, maybe befriend them, maybe, help them out in life. You know, it depends on who you are. Maybe you value your emotions. When you get, deeply offended by something, you'll get emotionally charged about something. You're gonna like be like, no, it don't matter because to me, and then it struck a chord, not in just any basic way. You know what I'm saying? This shit like actually has you pissed off. You don't get it. Um, and you ain't looking for, you know, your emotions matter. When you're upset deeply about something, it matters, and people should like take note of that. What I'm saying here is they shouldn't fuck with you like that on some shit. If they're doing that, they're gonna get bit. You know, depending on what the sign is. I have to fucking go through and let you guys know. But basically, you value the emotional state. You value your deeper side. You value other people's, emotions, their deeper side, one's soul. But second house, Aries moon, you value your aggressive, more passionate side. When you get emotion, it ain't, it could stem from, it depends, right? You can be very passionate about something and only, people around you know who you are, because like they've seen you come through different phases in your life and other things. They've seen your emotional side more. They know what you get passionate about and other things, and they like that side of you. But more so, you like that about yourself. Um, and then when people don't um, see things your way, people are not as, you know, goal oriented, action driven people. That can really tick you off. So you value, other people as well, but you like people to see you as that person. I am passionate about this, and this type of thing is distasteful towards me. Like that shit is very distasteful. I don't like it. You'll let people know. And you might not let people know, but if you actually care about somebody and you don't mind showing your deeper side to somebody else, you'll get loud and let them know, hey, you know, don't do this. I like this. I'm driven towards these type of things, and that's who I am. Deep down inside, that's who I am. I'm a person that's driven by my vision, and really, I don't care about any of that shit that, and I try to conduct myself in a way that is, you know, not too, you know, overpowering at times. But you understand that when you get passionate like that, you don't give a fuck. You are gonna do that, and people are gonna like respect you, or they're gonna, not. You know, but you value that side of yourself. Your passionate, wild side. Your more aggressive nature. Um, you'll always be seeking your vision, and you value that about yourself. Whereas others might, not like you. You don't give a fuck, and that's a great thing to value, you know, your vision and where you want to go with shit. Now, somebody who has Taurus in the second house, Taurus moon in the second house, this person values their emotional state too. But they value the presence which they have when they're in their feelings. They value that, the moments in life. I would say, it might not be fun. It might not be, you know, everybody's having fun and everybody's doing this, but it's like, in those moments where you're, to yourself and, doing your own thing, you value your self-love and shit like that. And on a deeper level, you like, it's almost like you have power from it, and it ain't that you hate people. You could have moments with people or without people, but you when you get emotional, you start to see things for what they are. Of course, you have a little bit more of like it's like what you're seeing in the present time. It's not what are other people feeling and doing. Like you can see that, right? You can be like, okay, that person over there is walking and doing that, and these people are in the parking lot doing their thing. But it's more, how am I feeling at the moment? And am I upset about, where I'm at in life? And what do I have to do to get out of my situation? And you kind of like, go through these phases where you do shit like that, and you might be upset, but then ultimately you're like, you know what? I'm still here. So I have the ability to get myself out of this situation. Maybe I have to help somebody else get out of this situation. Maybe I am the one who's there for the people I care about, and they want me to just be there and listen to them. And you're cool with that sometimes. Sometimes you're not cool with it and you try to isolate yourself. That's fine too. you know, but you value those moments in life. You know, they ain't all, great or anything, but the things that build you into the person you are. And then you value yourself more because you went through those things that other people never went through, but to you, it's you. And in your heart, that's who you are. And you really value that about yourself. It built everything I went through, built me and built my character to who I am today. And I appreciate that. What I've went through, um, you know, it built me and it built my character. So, that's the shit you value. You value yourself and the things you've went through. And you can see things in the present time for what they are and not get too extra about it. You know, you value that side of yourself. Gemini in the second house. Gemini moon in the second house. This person values communication. Communication with the people they care about deeply. They like to be around those people. They like to be the one who is sought after for their intelligence. When they ain't having conversations that, this person is not at ease, they're like, I have questions, I need them answered. I like to pose questions to other people to get their mind racing. Maybe you do like to, gossip and, spread rumors and shit. But like to you, and to you, sometimes it's not even you're trying to do that to cause problems necessarily. You're just trying to, this is boring. So I want to like get people, more chatty and other things. In doing that though, you can cause, fights and other things, but then you are also one who can also resolve those issues. If you really care about the people that you're, antagonizing or fucking with, you know, you'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, my, I kind of was, the one in the wrong there. I might have should have, said this before things got out of hand. Um, oh shit. Um, but yeah, you know, you value conversation, you value your intellectual mind. When you have to say something, it ain't just, some like basic shit. You're talking, using your words, your vocabulary is high, and you expect people to listen, And then sometimes, because this is the moon now, right? You forget that other people are not so intelligent, aren't so wordy about shit, aren't looking for that type of information out of your mouth. But you don't care. You were just there giving that information. To you, it's like, if I wasn't here giving you that information, who's going to tell you this shit? Nobody's going to tell you this shit. I know it. I like to let other people, keep other people informed, just because that's what I like to do. And you're just that type of person. You're that type of person who likes to hear themselves talk. Um, Other people know you as that type of person, and they don't hate you. They just know, oh shit, so and so is gonna go into a long-winded speech about this and that now, and we gotta listen to him, or we should listen to him, shouldn't listen to him. You're just always gonna be that one that is talking to somebody, and if those people don't like to talk to you, you'll find somebody to talk to you. Hell, you might, you'll find some human to talk to. Don't worry. You'll find somebody out there who don't mind listening to you ramble on about some shit. Because you know that there's people like you out there. Even if, the people you hang around or the people that you care about or care about you might not be up to par with, those type of conversations you want to have. Listen to you talk about this type of work and these intricate ideas and what type of, plans you have for the future that are very detailed and, you know, other things. They only catch part of it, that type of deal. But you don't care. You're gonna, let them know. And you state things clearly. You value your voice and your intellectual mind. Now, Cancer, Moon in the second house. You value your emotions. When you get emotional, you're upset. You want other people to understand, why they put you in that state. You know, you deeply hurt me when you did this. You understand that I came from this type of background and other things, yet you still did that. And I'm like deeply hurt by it. Or maybe you were the one listening to somebody else's shit. Or they're like, somebody did this to me. And, after all the shit we've been through together or what I've been through myself, and this shit still happens, and you're like, damn, why does that happen? Or maybe you're like, that sucks, but we still have to move forward and, find people who, really, care about our emotional state and won't say things, just to get their point across or whatever. They know that words hurt people and actions hurt people, and, they might be, you know, less inclined to do shit like that. But depending on the person, a younger person or a person who's seeking that type of, you know, the negative sides of life because they believe that they need to experience that for them to fully be, for them, basically for them, they want to know another person's pain and suffering. To them, for some reason, these people like to do that, and they like to delve into that. And to them, that is them as a person. This person who has moon, Cancer moon, um, it helps them be a better person, and then they understand people more. And to a degree, that's true. But then this person can't then be like, oh, I wasn't expecting that type of thing. Because again, you value your intuition. You already know what you're getting into. Like, you have an idea about who you're fucking with before you even fucking with them. You know, it does. Maybe because you go in thinking, okay, this person can change, or this person can, become a better person with me, and we can grow together. We might not be, you know, the best people right now, but we can, grow. And me being the type of person I am, I could be more supportive. And this is one who is more wise and shit. One who is, less will be like, I just want to, jump right in and experience something, you know. But the same person could also be like, I don't want to, I value my intuition, and if I'm feeling like in any kind of way that you're a dangerous person or a person that could get me, in trouble, I'm gonna stay the fuck away from you. I'm just gonna avoid you. We just don't, I just know because you value your intuition. You value that part of yourself. You're like, I understand that this human being right here probably has those type of tendencies. I see like certain things and like the vibes they're giving off. It's a sixth sense, right? Because that's what rules Cancer, the moon, and your shit is pretty damn good, right? Your intuition, your those type of abilities are, pretty damn good. Um, you know, we understand that this person sometimes, depending on the person, because this is a moon sign, and when you're in an emotional state, you're gonna be less, active. You understand that you as a person don't like to be hurt, so you don't want to hurt other people. And that's typically how you are when you get in your emotional state. You'll be more of a crybaby about shit. This person did this to me, and I don't, like them. That type of thing. You ain't gonna like get active and like grab somebody. Yeah, you might, but like even if you are that type of person, like you have a sun that's like in fire or earth or something maybe, and you're just pissed off at what somebody said, you're gonna feel really bad about it. You're gonna like take it out on yourself. You're gonna be like, damn, maybe I shouldn't have like fucked that person up. Maybe I shouldn't have ringed that person so hard. And you're gonna go back to them and be like, I am so sorry. Like I want us to like be on good terms again. Cause I really didn't want to do that to you, and I really did feel bad that I had to do that to you. That type of thing. You value the deeper connections you have to people in life, and you value your intuition towards picking who to give your energy and time to. Leo, um, Leo Moon in the second house. This person values their energy, their deeper side though. When they are, in an emotional state and something takes them off, they're gonna like let you know, like what takes them off, and like how to better, for this shit not to happen again, and for me to not, go fucking ballistic and go crazy and make a spectacle of shit. You will not do these type of things. If you value me as your friend, you're gonna do this towards me, and you're not gonna do this towards me, and you're gonna like make a spectacle, and you're gonna get upset, at people, you know, because you value yourself and you value, your passionate side, your grand vision of what you have for planned out for, or what you see you and your people, the people around you doing in the future. If you're doing that right, you want to know that you have the people around you who are loyal to you, and also value you for being there, and being a you know very loud and proud person. You know, you like people who value that side of you, that deeper side of you, because it don't always come out, but it comes out when you're around the people that you care about, or the people that care about you. And you see that because the actions they take towards what you show and do for them. When you show off and, you know, try to be entertaining, they value that, and you value them too, because they see that in you, and you're like, oh wow, you know, you people are actually cool. But you understand what you can't do here, because you're also gonna let them know what not to do. Because again, this is a Leo in the moon, and you're gonna do that and let them know. Or if you ain't gonna let them know, people will find that out about you just based off of how you are when you get emotional. Because when you get emotional, you get more loud and you sound more, you know, upset. You know, they'll know what makes you upset. You know, even if you ain't one to be like, lay it out for them, like, you know, I don't like this shit. If you don't want me to be angry and loud and make a spectacle of shit and, like, you know, fuck your day up, you'll do this around me, or just stay away from me, you know, that type of thing, you know, depending on the person. But essentially, you value your kingly or your vision of the future, and like who you like want to have around you too. That's the key there, because this is fixed fire. You don't want yourself to die out because you have weak people around you who don't value you for who you know you can be, and the type of energy you bring to a moment. Like, you're the type of person that, you know, can also turn a, you know, bad moment into a good moment. But like at the same time, like I said, you can lash out and get angry and, you know, other things. And it's dependent upon, you know, do people value your aura, you know, your loudness, your, you know, when you get passionate about something, you get, you know, excited about, you know, showing off and shit. You know, are they supportive of that? Or are they getting jealous? Or are they getting, you know, in their feelings about what you're doing because they can't do it? Or you might view it that way. And that might not be what it is, but they're not doing or valuing you as the individual or the person who's bringing all the excitement. You feel that way. So you value people who, you know your worth and care about you, and care about what you do and show the world. This person with Virgo moon in the second house, this person obviously, you know, values hard work. Not just hard work, detail oriented people themselves, especially because this is in the moon. If this is, you know, Virgo moon in the second house, you value that part of yourself. And then you'll like let people know too, because remember, Virgo's introverted blue, ruled by the throat chakra pull. You don't like to talk, right? Necessarily. The actions speak for themselves. You know, I've done work and I haven't done it half-assed. And like, people basically, you know what you've done, and people would acknowledge that, would just do it, because they'll be like, who did this? Who built this? Who helped fix whatever this was? That was you? Wow. You know, you've done this. You know, you made sure to pick up on every detail and, you know, fix things, right? Um, and then you're like a nitpicker, but you don't mind that about yourself. You value that about yourself. You're like, to me, if I'm not doing that, even when you're in an emotional state and that shit's kind of unnecessary, you know, in the situation, you still value that about yourself, you know, because to you, I'm a person who holds myself to a high standard. I'm going to hold everybody to a high standard. And then like when somebody catches me, you know, off my game, or maybe not having fun, or not doing what other people, you know, would say is, you know, oh, well, that might be true about what you've done, but like, what have you done in this area? And then you're like, oh, well, okay, that's funny, because, and then you're gonna pick them apart. You're gonna be like, because you're the way you're supposed to, you know, take care of yourself. You ain't doing that. You forgot to do this today when you usually do this. You're gonna pick them the fuck apart. And like, you ain't gonna give a fuck about it because, at the end of the day, you value that part of yourself. You value your mind is detail oriented. You can see things developing before anybody else could. Whereas I, see people going somewhere, you're taking note of like the clothes they're wearing and other things, and you're like, you know what? Guess what? They're gonna come out of this place like, cause I'm looking at a parking lot right now. That's why I say this. And there's like three people going into the In-N-Out Burger. You're like, okay, based off how they're acting and what they're saying and everything else, they're gonna come out of here with this and this. And I'm just like, they're coming out with food. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that they're just coming out with food because I know they're going there to get food. Whereas you're gonna be like, oh, they're probably gonna come out here with this and this based off educated guess. And you like don't know, but you're also like whatever, And that's just you being a little bit fun, but you're like looking like, you know what I'm saying? You're looking into shit more. That's my whole point with that. You value that part of yourself. But that could be annoying to some people. Because again, people don't look at things that way. But also, other people like me, I understand that shit's cool, to you. Why do you want to simply look at something when you can like look at something and like see all the like ins and outs of one thing? Like you can look at something that somebody else looks at, and then you can pick it apart and see where you can improve upon things. What makes it, not so great or whatever, you know. And you value that part of yourself, because this is Virgo moon in the second house, right? And you're more like that when you get emotional, and then people get you in your feelings. But like you still value that part of yourself, who cares, I see it and you don't. You're a dumbass. You're a stupid bitch, that type of thing. And you might not say that depending on what your sun sign is, but you might say that, Now the Libra moon in the second house, you value conversations with people, of course, but not just any kind of conversations. You like to know that people are, good, doing all right, you know, in their lives and shit, Are your like relationships with your like loved ones good? Is your, but then like there's a negative side to it too, because this is you in your emotional state. You can be so lost in like other people that you ain't like focused on yourself enough, because you're looking into, you're like, hey, how was your relationship with so and so? I'm sure that this, this and that. You talk to people a lot, but you also like find yourself being a gossiper as well. Um, people hurt your feelings, and then you feel the need to like, retaliate by talking about them behind their back and shit like that. And then you can be judgmental towards people too. But basically, what you value is conversations that help you, but also, like you're letting somebody know that there's something out there for them, even if it ain't you, right? Even if you're like being a judgmental type of person, right? Let's say you don't like this person because they associate with these type of ideas and other things. Even so, you're basically letting that person know that you can't be a part of my friend group because we believe in these ideas. That in turn helps that person out, because guess what? They'll be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't associate with these type of individuals now because, you, or, maybe they'll just be like, I shouldn't associate with you, because you're saying that, I'm doing this wrong and, this and that. And, but you also like are a good person, good enough to like let them know, you know what I'm saying? You're going to let them know why you don't like them. You're going to be intelligent and graceful about it, but you're going to like let them know, you know, and you're not going to like not let them know. To you, that's just not good, because you look at yourself and you're like, I have questions about people. how their relationships are with other people and other things. How are they, doing in their day-to-day lives? To you, that gives you a sense of security knowing what's going on with them, you know. And then it might give them a sense of security too, knowing that you are a person that they can come talk to. You might leave off on some shit like that. Lead off on some shit like that, if you're cool with somebody. If you ain't cool with them or they ain't cool with you, then you ain't gonna talk to them much. Or you're gonna like let them know that they should stay away from you or stay away from your friends because you don't like them. You're judging them, but you're also letting them know that you don't fuck with that shit. But you're not just doing that either, because this is Libra, so you're a little bit more intelligent about how you state things, smarter about it. You ain't trying to necessarily cause problems, but like what I'm telling you is you might cause problems depending on who you fuck with, and say shit to, because you are more intelligent about some things, and then like people know you and stuff, if it affects their relationships in a negative way because you said or you felt like you needed to be a messenger for or anything like that, and you didn't convey what they needed you to, then they're going to be attacking you and being like, hey, you know, why'd you say this to so and so when, that is not what I need you to say. You're paraphrasing things and other stuff, but you value your, calm behavior towards, conversations, you know, and then like, all I'm saying is for you, you're smart about how you go about doing things, and you are. But like, don't try to do too much. That's why you're Libra, like the balance. You gotta know when to talk to people and when not to talk to people. It's fine to be a social animal and talk to people. Don't try to be everybody's friend essentially. And then I believe with time you understand that too, because then you later on in life or at some point in your life you value, you know, people who like want to like approach you, or you're just better at, using your intuition to, find people who, you can talk to or communicate with. You can figure things out with trying to not getting into like people's business too much, without prying too fucking much. But you value your calm nature, your peaceful nature, and how you go about doing things in life, and you don't care if people hate on you for it or jealous of you, because you have the way to conduct yourself that is not like other people, and you're just like, hey, that's who I am. I've told you something you don't like, I approached it and I talked to you clearly and I've stated things in a calm manner. you know there's no need for that. And even when you disagree with something, you try to still be like that. you know just people might hate on you and shit, depending on who they are, and depending on like how you like saying shit, because some people don't like smart people. That's all I'm saying. um but the next person, Scorpio moon in the second house, you value a deep connection with the person, but not just any person, how they can see things your way, feel you on a deeper level. Do they have the guts to like go through like the like negative shit with you and be there for you with that and go through things with that? um you might be into some dangerous shit. You don't care, you like that. That's living life on the edge, and that's what you like to do. Maybe you don't want to do that though. Maybe you just like to have that deeper intimate connection with somebody. And then when you feel like that ain't being met, you're gonna be like very violent and other things. You don't care about me enough because you don't take note of what I do. Again, this is Scorpio moon. um but again, this is more you, and like them not taking note of what you've been through how you're still conducting yourself, despite going through these, negative things. I'm still here doing this and that, and you don't know how I felt during this time. And, all of that builds up sometimes, and then you can lash out. You know, you value your drive, your desire to obtain what you want to do. Like, because to you, like, and this is like for real, you don't, with certain things that you're driven towards, you don't care about other people. When it all comes down to it, you know, you do, but like, it's all about what you can achieve. At the end of the day, if you have to walk over some people to get to where you need to be, so be it. It don't matter, because that takes guts, and that's like true guts too. Because remember, this is introverted yellow, and you value that part of yourself, and you also value that in other people too. And you're like, that's somebody I can make, you know, moves with. That's somebody that I can count on in situations. But you also don't make that decision too quickly. You don't do that shit because you have to actually experience that person and be around that person long enough to know that. Because then if you see them like change up in any type of, show any kind of like weakness towards like what they got going on, you're gonna like question them and then be like, if I'm questioning you too much about what you're gonna do about something, I can't be around you, respectfully. I can't do it. And it's more, it ain't the like, loudness. You ain't searching for that necessarily. You're searching for the actions that are being taken. And are you achieving these goals that you have deep down inside? You know, and you like that in people and you value that in yourself. Because to you, if you don't have the drive or the desire to do anything, then why even exist and live? You might as well just be dead. You know? So that's what you value in life. On a deeper level. And like that's how you create your like true, that's where your true friends lie too, and the people you're very close with, you value that in them as well. And you like, push them even. When you see them say that they're gonna do something and then they don't do it, you're gonna be like, hey, like I thought you said you were all this and that. Like, and you're not the one to always, because you're doing that for yourself. But then you get upset because somebody else ain't doing what they want to do, and you care about that person. You're like, whoa, like I thought you were doing this and that. But you're doing, you're giving up on yourself and other things. You might as well be dead. You'll say, start saying certain things to try to get them, to come back. But, that's what you value, you know, on a deeper level. And then this person called the Sagittarius moon in the second house. This person values, their emotional state a little bit. You know, um, they value their freedom a lot. Um, and then when they feel like somebody's, trying to, tie that shit down or, restrict them in any kind of way, even if it's like we have to wait for like, we can't do this right now, but we have to do this like, in a couple of days, you know, because to you and your feelings and what you're seeing right now, you're saying, no, we can't wait too long. We have to do this shit today. No time to waste. You don't like people who are like that typically. Um, and it's more when you're like in your emotional state and you like really passionate or driven or, excited for really, you know, experiencing this type of thing. And then somebody's inhibiting you from doing it, or you feel like they're inhibiting you from doing it, you're gonna lash out. You're gonna tell them why they're, not so fun or not so, why people don't like them. You're gonna run it all by them. People don't like you because you're, this way and this way. But you're gonna like be really, blunt and forward about it. You're a bitch for not doing this. You're a, you know, cunt for, saying this and this about me. You know, you make me feel like this, and I can't be around you for that. That's somebody that's a lame. You're a lame ass bitch. You're a lame ass nigga. This and that. All kind of things. But like you value that part of yourself because to you, you're like, why hold any of that shit back? It maybe we do have a problem, we do have beef, and we do fight, but then we get it resolved right away. So then it's not like it builds up to something that's like worse than that. You know, in your mind, getting it nipped in the butt right there, is better than letting shit boil over. You don't like that. That's why you are like the way you are. You don't like to do that. And even with the people that you care about and shit, you'll be like, you're the type of person that's like, I love you, so and so, and I care about you and everything, but and then you're the one that does that shit, and you're like, but, and then you're like, oh, you know, but and you ain't like too like extra like with the words. Well, you are extra with the words, like you're loud and other things. But what I'm saying is you're not too like wordy about things. You're like, people won't see you as this because of this. You lack this kind of like passionate or energy and like the way you say things or the way you do things, and you'll like let them know. But like you're gonna say it in your own like fucked up blunt way. Because like you're just gonna let it roll off the tongue. You ain't gonna like filter yourself and say shit. But you like that about yourself. And then like people value that about yourself too, and you're just like, like me or hate me, I'm gonna let you know what it is. I'll be loud and proud about it too. I don't want to hide anything from me. And then because you ain't gonna hide anything when you're emotional. That's all I'm saying, because this is the moon sign, brother and sisters, who have Sagittarius moon in the second house. You ain't gonna hide none of that shit, that you have to say, you know, and you value that part of yourself. You don't hate yourself because you get emotional and saying that shit. Other people might hate you for it, but you're like, nah, I actually love that part of me, even if it's like seems toxic or negative towards other people. I still value that part of me. I seek the excitement. I see no reason to wait for, things. I'll make that shit happen however, and whatever happens, consequences happen, whatever, I can see. Because again, you're a positive person too, you know, we'll see our way through it. I'll see my way through it. Now the Capricorn moon in the second house. You don't like being seen as a crybaby or any of that shit. You like to be the strong one. You like to be the one that is, you know. So you will isolate yourself more than likely, you know, or you'll, go off and, do something, you know. You'll take action, if somebody like, says the wrong thing and it's like something that, really triggers you, you're gonna swing on them and shit, You'll get active on them, but, you try not to, because you are an introvert and you also understand that you do have the ability to hurt somebody, but you don't want to. So you might take it out on yourself and you might be like, maybe I need to do more work and I need to stay the fuck away from people. But you're gonna also let other people know, like, I don't like you because you lack the initiative. You are, maybe you are doing things, but you're like too focused on like what people think about what you do. And like, it's kind of like the results speak for themselves. And then, when people don't, value that and you value that about yourself, I can put my head down and like, stay disciplined and, like not let shit rock me too much, or basically you ain't gonna allow shit to, that's essentially what it is. You're not gonna allow shit to do that, you know, but in being like that, you're one, and this is an earth sign, so you see people's practical actions, and like for what it is and everything else. And then when you hear them say shit, and then like the it don't add up because of what you know hear and then what you see. You're like, you say you're doing this and that, but like you don't have any results from what you've done. You know, you might want to like go and like chew them out maybe, or be like, have you lied to me about what you're doing? You know, I've been doing this and that. You know, you value that part of yourself that is disciplined and hardworking, grinding part of yourself. Whereas other people might not see that part of you, maybe, or care about it, because like maybe you are a extrovert or a person who's lively and other things, and you like being around people. But then there's times when you're like, people aren't seeing what I'm doing or what I'm actually going through, or what you don't see things for what they are enough, and what it took to like make that shit happen. You'll get upset about some shit like that. You don't like people who like talk and do all that and like don't have anything to show for it. You like those people who, grind out hard even if it takes some time. But then you're also like, there's no time for like slow shit either. You know what I'm saying? You gotta take action and attack, you know. But you don't have to like be, you know, loud about it. The actions speak for themselves, and like that'll piss you off if you see somebody who's like being loud and other things about it, and getting to like you know like making a spectacle about it, and you're like, I'm not even trying to do that. Let's just get this shit done. Let's just go to work, get our money, go to work, get our money, even if we don't like going to it. you know and you tell yourself that every day, but then sometimes you're like, am I even doing you know what it like, you second guess yourself sometimes too. But then you're like, no, I value that part of myself. This discipline in the long run and everything else is gonna it's gonna pan out for me, because other people like to fuck around and play games too much. But me, you know when I really lock in, because like when you're in your emotions, you like to lock in and shit, right? And you value that part of yourself, right? You're gonna make some shit happen. Sometimes when you make shit happen, things can fall apart. When you like don't, because this is a Capricorn moon, so you don't care about other people's emotions. You, like I said, you don't like people who don't see things for what they are. So you'll like get very pissed when you like align somebody to the reality of the situation, and they're just not hearing it, and they're telling you other things, and you're like, wait, what? I told you it works like this, and it does work that way. But sometimes you gotta understand that people ain't gonna see it that way. And then you feel like you're all alone, and you're like, there's nobody real out here. There's nobody who can just, do things, live their lives, you know, get what they need to. Don't fuck with people too much, be useful, because like you like being useful too. That's, because this is cardinal earth. So you like to take action practically, and not like wait for shit, initiate action, practical action. And you value that about yourself. You value discipline and value hard work. Keep being that way, because eventually people will take note of it, even if they don't initially. They will eventually. Um, and you know that too deep down. And but you also don't care, because to you it's like, I need the results. I need to get my shit together. I need to have my shit together so people can confide in me later on and shit. Now, Aquarius moon in the second house. This person values their mind and values, the way they think about things. They have a fixed way of thinking because it's fixed wind. But it's like, they can look at something and see, or look at humanity and see, where, things might need to be improved upon, or question things a little more, where people might, take shit at face value. Everybody says that, all, crocodiles are green, but you know that there's other species of animals that are, other colors and shit like that. But you like, again, like you question things and you're like, somewhere out there probably is, a crocodile that's blue, that type of deal. And it's not just like that, because these people are smart, or value their, and they kind of like go a little deeper than that, you know. Their, skin would turn blue because of the, environment they live in, and there's only like very few of these things, and we haven't even discovered these animals yet. Maybe they don't even live. You know what I'm saying? And people are kind of like, oh well, we don't care about that, or people don't think about that type of thing. Why would you even bring it up, or why do you keep bringing it up when but sometimes you're the one that, sometimes these people, once they, get enough people to, um, get behind them and shit, then can, discover shit. And then, people are like now accepting it, 10 years down the line, this person becomes, that person who discovers the shit, you know. And like, that's just a small detail, or a small, um, uh, example of like a person who does stuff like that, and they value that about them so much to, the degrees, and they, they get their degrees and shit, and then they do that, or whatever. They might not even get their degrees because, again, they're somebody who's smart. So they'll teach themselves, and then they'll, do the research, you know, figure things out, put pieces together, find like-minded people who agree with this, and, and they'll discover things for other human beings, to like new information, because they like to question things that are, currently going on, and then, just get people's, mind working a little better, and just be like, I was just thinking about that, not necessarily they have to, change their opinion to fit their, agenda. They don't look for that. They look for people to, have their own mindset too. And like, if, they have something that other people weren't thinking about, that's cool, because they do then enlighten somebody to, a new way of thinking about, something going on in, our time as human beings on earth right now. You value your mind, and you value your, uh, thoughts about things. You like to, question things other people don't, take note of necessarily. Or maybe they have, and you're like the one that's like, maybe you shouldn't, stay away from questioning that thing, that you've been questioning about people, or where we could go with this type of thing as human beings, and all that shit, right? And you value that. You basically value your mind, and, thinking outside the box. And then Pisces, the last one. You, Pisces moon, and then, like I said, and for the Aquarius moon, that's when you get in your emotional state, and you're like, thinking about things, to yourself. You value your mind even when people are saying, that might be cracked out, that might not be a thing. I don't think that's what humans do, or can ever do, but you still question things, and, think, and then, maybe, down the line, things actually pan out the way you thought it did. But anyways, I was just saying that because it's the moon, right? I needed to get that clear because, again, this is people who get an emotional state. But sometimes when people get emotional, it ain't always a negative thing, is what I'm saying. Because there's a yin and yang within each tropical. Um, Pisces moon, this person has they're deeply intuitive too. They can like feel other people's pain and like basically, capitalize on it. And what I mean by that, they can manipulate the situation to get a desired result for themselves or said person that they're trying to help out, depending on who the fuck they are. And they're like creative about things because like again they feel what you're going through, or they like understand that you're like down and out, and like they feel your pain and your suffering, but they can also feel your enjoyment and your excitement, and they want to be around that, or they want to help your situation out or be around that energy more so that they themselves feel better, or they delve into a negative emotion to or somebody else is in a negative state so they can then help them out of it, or and kind of come in as that savior type person, like I want to save you from this because I understand that you are going through this type and I want to just you know be with you for a time to help you get past that, because I understand other people will probably look away or shy away from shit like that. And it depends on the person who has the moon sign in Pisces. Some people are more driven towards that, but other people are more like, no, I value my energy too much. If it's a negative energy over there, I'm not gonna fuck with it. And they're fine too. They just won't fuck with it. They'll be like, I sense that over there, and I'm not doing it. I'm not fucking being around that shit, and I'm not associating with that. Because they know that that ultimately will bring them down to that person's level, and they're not gonna do that shit. They ain't gonna allow their vibes to go down, where because they're like wise about it. They're like, if I'm in a good mood and they're in a bad mood, and I know they're in a bad mood, I don't want to go over there and make it worse for myself, because then I'm gonna be upset, and I'm gonna have to get back out of that. You value your creativity, but you value your ability to like seize opportunities in a because like you're not looking at, because this is Pisces, right? So this is introverted power. You're more intuitive, so you do feel other people's pain, not exactly what they're going through, but you can like when somebody's emotional, or maybe if they're hiding something, you can tell. Truly intuitive people can tell that shit, and you're one of those types. you know Maybe somebody on the outside is acting like they're good, but to you, you're like, I don't know, that person seems to be acting and not being too, they ain't too happy like they coming off as, and like that's the thing. People who are creative too, because you yourself are a creative person. you know but you like to create problems too. Again, like I said, you might be one that will still fuck with somebody, even if they are, in a negative state, because you want to like experience that pain in life. Like, like, am I gonna create this experience right now with a person, and am I gonna like, cause you like want to be that person, right? Or you want to like prove it to yourself, or whatever. Am I gonna be able to come out of the situation, better or worse? And you don't mind testing that. Basically, you kind of have some balls sometimes when you get emotional sometimes, and you're like, okay, this like argument that we're in, can like dissolve right here, and we can just eat it or whatever, or we can, I can make things worse, and I can, make people feel bad, um, or and you have the like wisdom to be like, I want to do that, but I don't want to do that. You pick your battles and shit with people. But of course, if somebody's done something that has really gotten you emotionally charged, you're gonna let them know, and you're gonna like not. And it's funny too, but you're not gonna care as much about what they got going on. You know what I'm saying? How they feel about it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you are though, because you want to move forward. You don't want to not move forward. You might be salty for a little bit though, you know. So they didn't agree with you on this and other things. You had a like deep, long, drawn out, conversation or whatever, or you had a like intervention, or it depends on your situation, and you were the one who was like really hurt by what they were doing. Something good came out, something bad came out of it, and then you're gonna like look at the positive things. You know, you try to see it all too, right? Even when you are emotional and you don't like what somebody does, their actions have hurt you deeply. Um, but you still try to be that person of wisdom, and like you value that about yourself. That action hurt me a lot as a person, like me, but ultimately I can't hate you for it because you're just trying to live life and do what you want to do, when it all comes down to it. But you still don't like what they've done, you know what I'm saying? You just don't. Yeah. But you're not gonna also, you know and like that was for the more immature ones, the ones who want to keep shit, toxic, and other things. But you value your emotional state, you value your creativity and your wisdom that you have to impart onto other people, and that you have for yourself. Um, but that is Moon in the second house for each of the signs. I'll be back next week with Mercury. But be cool, calm, corner.